What's up, everybody? This is Stock Company here. We're back here again for another live stream. So for this live stream, we're going to talk about the news about what's been going on with Sped for this new month here, May 2025, the year 2025, the month of May. So Sped, for those of you who've been paying attention to the story, um, pretty much was moved out of this facility due to lack of funding, right? He was living in this kind of a retirement slash adult living facility. Basically, you could call it a senior center, depending on whatever name you have it. So, uh, I don't know if you all recall the story, Choppa. Do you remember the story I told you about what happened to my dad when they tried to move him out?
Yep.
So, remember towards the end of the story, I told you that they supposedly put him up in some hospital, and he's been living at this hospital, right?
Yep.
So, at the same time, I figured, let me go and kind of call the caretaker and see what her side of the story is. Maybe she knows something that I don't know, that perhaps kind of like what they call playing devil's advocate in this case, which means, finding out what may be going on in case people who've been telling me what is going on ain't telling me the full truth. So she told me that apparently they put him up into another adult living facility that was about 45 minutes to an hour away from where they live. Um, and I don't think she knows I think she gave me some address or something. So, and she was trying to figure out where he was, and what ended up happening was um, she was apparently informed of some company that did not have my dad. I don't know who gave her this company, maybe one of my uncles, I don't know. Gave her some company that does like home care in the state of Georgia. And they gave her this like corporate phone number for this home care group. And on top of that, she was given an address, but she didn't really know what this was. So she gave this number and she asked me to call this number. And I called up. It's basically corporate office for some healthcare group, and they don't know who my dad is even. So somehow she, I guess, decided that um, she needed to try to find him, basically. And apparently, what's been going on is that my uncles don't want to tell or reveal any information as to where my dad is because they're afraid that basically what they're trying to do is basically find a place for him. And for them to find a place for him to live, they need insurance. Basically, they need two state governments. They need Georgia and North Carolina to come forward to provide uh, funding for him to have a place to live, essentially, because my dad's got no money. Okay, he's completely broke, and we don't know if he has any money at all at this point. Who No one seems to know really much of anything. Other than he was receiving some kind of pension from. So I think, from my understanding, he was getting two pensions or two forms of income. He had SSI, which is Social Security income you get from the federal government once you are over the age of 65. And I think he was getting some of that. I don't know how much. And because he worked in North Carolina for 5 years, or I think it's like at least over 5 years, as what they call a teacher. So, teacher includes school teachers, government teachers, county teachers, but also includes, in his case, people who work for like a college or university in the state. And my dad worked for, I believe, 5 years at a college in Salisbury, a place called Livingston College. And he taught kind of like psychology, social studies stuff. I think he taught statistics there at some point. And my dad kind of basically did the bare minimum that he could at that college so that he could basically qualify for that pension. So basically, what he would do is he would maybe teach one class a semester, meaning that it was like an hour to basically what a semester would be, an hour to 2 or 3 times a week, basically. I think at most was he basically did like one class every Monday through Friday, which might have been like one or two courses. Um, what he would do is he would come into that course, kids or the students, whoever would come into that course. He would have an assignment already set up at the beginning of the class, which usually was like to write an essay. And let's say it's psychology, right? First one could be like, what do you think psychology is? Well, basically, in your words, describe what you know of psychology. Something easy like that. So he would then, at that point, instead of like, I don't know if he would give a lecture or talk about something or not, I don't know. But apparently, according to my grandparents, they claim that they saw him or overheard that what he would do was give out this assignment and then walk behind some door and fall asleep in like an office that was behind the classroom. Again, this was like early in the morning, so you have an assignment up. So basically, you got work for the students to do, and then he would go and apparently sleep for like another hour and a half in some office, and nobody would catch him because I think at one point he was like the department head at that college. Um, And then after an hour, hour and a half passes by, towards the end of the class, he'll collect all the papers and start grading the papers, right? He wouldn't be reading the papers. He would be grading off based off the length of the writing. If a person didn't write anything, they'll get an F, basically, right? If they wrote like something, like, maybe a couple sentences here and there on something, he would give them a D. If they wrote at least a paragraph, it would be a C. If they wrote half a page, it was a B. If they wrote a full page, it was an A. But he wouldn't read what they wrote. So as far as who knows, somebody could have been talking about McDonald's. Somebody could have been talking about what they ate last night. Man, he wouldn't be reading it. So apparently that was what was going on, rumored to be. I don't know if this is true or not. Again, I don't have sufficient evidence. So, but this is just the rumors that have been brought around. So apparently he did that for about 5 years, and then towards the end of the 5 years, he and a group of these professors kind of had this like lawsuit after the 5 years, after they got their pension and everything, all that set up. So apparently, what happened was, the story goes is that Livingston College back in the 1990s um, had this person. I don't know what the details are exactly. You can probably look it up online actually, but my dad, not being the main person, I think he was like a second or third person in his group, were apparently being threatened to be let go from the university because Livingston College is traditionally known as a kind of a famous college for minorities. And being that my dad and these group of professors are not from this demographic that they were trying to represent at the school, they wanted to get rid of them. So the main guy in this case basically found sufficient evidence to basically take them to court. And I think what happened was the main professor got like over $100,000 from this lawsuit back in the 90s. I think my dad got maybe like 10,000 or 30,000. Um, but for him, that was like an insane amount of money back then. And so, anyways, he got that pension, right? And then just the regular SSI. So basically, he had those two forms of income plus whatever leftover income he got from whatever work he did throughout his life, which from everyone's saying it's nothing. Um, so yeah, basically, my dad is at this hospital, right? He was he has been moved from the emergency room to as a patient inside the hospital, and he's basically in some taking up a bed there at the hospital because they don't know what to do with him. My uncles are afraid that if this lady finds out what hospital he's at, she's going to drive up to this hospital, show up at the hospital, pick him up, get him discharged from the hospital, and try to take him back to where they were living before. And the problem is with that, first of all, where he was living before, they probably won't let him go in because, first of all, it's going to cost money, and we don't know if that's going to, if money's even available. My uncles believe that they're going to actually probably kick him out of that facility of where he was living before, and probably kick this lady out too. So both of them are probably going to be kicked out onto the street if that happens. So this lady has been trying to call up everybody, and for whatever weird reason, she started calling my uncle brother. So brother so and so says not to do this. Brother so and so says not to do that, which I find kind of weird and funny. Be calling somebody that. Um, but yeah, there has been no movement. My dad's been just sitting in this hospital for since like the 25th of April. It's now May 14th, 2025. So that's like 20 days at a hospital. Just sitting there, man. Just chilling. And I just find it insane that it's at this point now we don't know what to do with it. And the other issue is that he has these like issues like with health. For example, mental issues. He may be having dementia, Alzheimer's, which basically is getting him acting crazy. He's also has neurological issues, like I think he has neuropathy, so he can't really walk that much. Like he has some mobility, but it's very limited. Um, I think he was walking with a cane. I don't know the whole story because the last 10, 15 years, he's been very quiet about everything. And it's been very unfortunate that he's gone in this path. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much been it, man. This lady's trying to show up at the hospital. My uncles who were kind of looking over all of that. They don't want to tell me or tell anybody really. They want to keep it a secret from everybody where my dad is. But they think that once he gets settled somewhere, um, there's a rumor that they may move him somewhere closer towards the border between Georgia and South Carolina. We don't know for sure yet, um, to make it easier for everybody to travel to. But we don't know at this point because it's so tough to say. But yeah, that's pretty much been it, man. I don't know, Chapa. What do you think, man? What would you do in this situation?
I mean, if you want to make money off him, then bring him to where you're living.
Well, that's the thing, man. I don't know where to bring him to. The Russian side of family doesn't really want him, so I don't
Well,
know where to put
your
him.
mom still hates him.
No, she says she don't want to do nothing, have anything to do with him, and I agree with that. That he should not be president at this point in her life because he would just be a burden. Other than the only thing that makes sense is if there was a way to set up like maybe a small end nursing home. I don't know how this would be done exactly, other than if somehow, say in the future, we find means to like own a property for him to stay at, and then somehow maybe some state government would basically send money over to care for him and have maybe somebody working there. But problem is we don't know the level of care he needs. That's the other issue. And to get all that set up and organized, it's a lot of resources would be necessary. So that would,
Yeah.
that would be basically a burden. Unless somehow we can figure out how to make that into a business, which I know in North Carolina there are plenty of people who have been able to create their own healthcare agencies, like our home healthcare agencies, from things like that. But the other option I can think of is to somehow get him to live with like somebody we know here, and then have them take care of him. But I don't know if they would be down to do that. Um, because I don't know what he's like anymore now. But we're basically optimistic at this point, or at least my uncles say that once we get, well, they are saying that once we found a place for him to go to, that they'll try to set up a way that we can come by to visit him. The other crazy thing, this lady who's the caretaker lady who's trying to get him back to living with her, she has this conspiracy theory that my dad might not really even be in any home health care or any official place. she thinks that my dad might be living with my Sped aunt, the one I made, I think, like one video talking about. And I kind of highly doubt that because this aunt wasn't really wanting for him to be there around 2015, 2016 when he was last living there. Um, why would she want him now when he's crazier? That to me doesn't really make a lot of sense. Plus, who knows? Like, I don't know why. Like, I don't see the motivation of having him there with her. So it's hard to say. But she's trying to. Apparently, she's trying to find a way to drive over from where she's living in that senior center over to my aunt's place. So that I wonder how it's going. If that happens, man, that's gonna be funny. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, guys, I just pretty much wanted to give you the heads up on what's been going on with Sped Dad lately. But it's been crazy, man. But yeah, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Thigh Company. Help us get to our subscriber goal. Like this video, thumbs up, comment down below what would you do in this situation.